And we're live. Hey everybody, this is Nicolas Roman, author and creator of Scratch Health, How to Create a Whole New You in 90 Days from Scratch. Unfortunately, starting a little late today. One of our experts who was going to be coming on to the show was having some kind of difficulties. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, so we're starting a little late today. However, we do have, as always, Protein Pete with us here to fill it and do his studly stuff and talk about some some good things as we normally do, or at least I think we do, touch on some different topics, talking about health and things. But once again, our expert was able to make it today. Hopefully we don't have that situation again next week. But in the meantime, we're going to make it the best show we can. So let's get this introduction the right way and done the right way, rather. So let's do this one more time, everybody. This is another edition of the Healthy Hangout.
All right.
There he is, Protein Pete. What's going on, Pete?
Everything's good, man. How you guys doing?
Well, I could say we've had better days, but don't like to be put on the spot. But you know what? We're about to be put on the spot now, so we got to make the best of it. So I think you know what we should talk about today? I think we should talk about something real simple. I was actually thinking about this a little earlier. Two topics I was actually thinking about adding on to one of our shows later on in the next coming weeks. But since we have the opportunity to kind of talk about it today, I figured we'd talk about it. One of it is water, which we have yet to kind of touch on in the past shows. And another topic I think we can kind of touch on a little bit is this idea of excessive cardio. One of the things that a lot of people tend to do is what they call chronic cardio, which is like, you've seen the marathon runners. They either do running or aerobics or the elliptical machines, and there's nothing wrong with any of that for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, even as high as 60 minutes. But you got these guys and gals who do this for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, or more. They excessively do this aerobic endurance type exercise, and one of the things that tends to do is it raises your cortisol levels. And there's a myriad of effects that happens when your cortisol levels get raised, but pretty much the main idea is you start to get disease in your body because our bodies weren't designed to be doing such chronic cardio. You know what I mean? I mean, you look back at when they were hunter-gatherers. Most people, if they ran, they were, first of all, being that we're bipedal, we would walk for miles and miles and miles. Walking, you could do that all day long. That's not a big deal. But the idea of the jogging, what you tend to do is you start to raise the heat on the inside of the body temperature, the inside body temperature that you have. You start to raise that. Essentially, you start to boil your insides, which makes more work on your kidneys. Actually starts to age you a little bit, creates a lot of that free radicals. If you look at it, just look at the evidence. You look at marathon runners, and you can kind of see a lot of them are very thin. They tend to be frail looking. They tend to look a little older than they actually are a lot of times because of that, the years of the consistent, hour by hour and mile by mile running. So what is some of your take on that, Pete?
Well, first of all, I think that some of those marathon runners would totally 100% disagree with you that they look frail. I mean, these guys are, they're elite athletes, and they train hard to get to that to where they're at. Obviously, science has shown that what you're saying is 100% true. So I mean, you got to take that information as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if a person is trying to achieve a goal, and they got to pay their price in order for them to get to where they want to get. I mean, you got to cut them some slack as well.
Well, it's like anything else. It depends on what you're trying to do. Unfortunately, people, if you're looking for a body type, then obviously you want to look at the result, the evidence that you have there. You look at the different kind of runners. You look at a marathon runner, then you look at a sprinter. If you're looking to be studly looking for a man, as a man, if you want to have muscular physique and you want to be that athletic type of look, that strong man look almost, then you would obviously not do what the marathon runners do, because the excessive running that they do eats a lot of the muscle out. So
Right.
it makes them thin. I mean, you say we disagree on how they look. You say they don't look frail, but they are thin, and that's something everybody has to agree on. They are very thin. They don't have that thick musculature or the
Right.
the hypertrophy where they got that bubbly, almost slight bodybuilder type, real performance based look. So if you're
Right.
really looking for a body type that you're aiming for, then then you do a sprinter's run. In my opinion, is actually healthier for you as well, because when you sprint, you build up HGH for men, which helps you to the natural HGH within your own body. You start to get the testosterone going, which there's been plenty of science that shows now that testosterone for men, especially as we get as we get older, as we age, is
Right.
important. We need that because we got in our hair to grow, our sex drive, our just our overall energy. That all that stuff is affected by testosterone. It's been proven that once you get to age 30 and beyond, it starts to decrease. I mean, teenage years and through your 20s, you're flying high at 100%, which is why most young people they can just go and go and go. It's, break night, not sleep, go to work the next day, party, and it's just a
Right.
constant source of energy. But once you start hitting 30 years old, it's just not quite the same. And when you hit 40, I think it drops by half. So as a sprinter, you start to you increase that. You get your chances better for getting that look, and you get that more muscular look. But then, like Pete said, if you're doing it for the love of the sport, well then yeah, you're gonna definitely have to pay that price, because if you just love to run, some people like to get that, what do they call it? The what is it? The runner's high? They get that
Right.
runner's high. Right, and they feel like they're like on cloud nine when they're running mile after mile after mile. So if you're doing it for that purpose and you're just trying to or you're trying to compete in these long marathons and triathlons, then hey, you're gonna have to pay the price, sacrifice a little bit. You might sacrifice a little bit of health long term, but it's like anything else. If you're doing it just for sport, at some point your career will end and you can focus more on your health. But uh, still, I would still say for somebody doing it long term, for meaning your life, in terms of health concerns, you may want to just look at some alternate methods as opposed to consistently running these long type miles and long hours.
Well,
So
then again, I think that goes back to again, people being uneducated and having misconceptions of what they need to do in order to be I guess having the perfect ideal body. You look at all these Hollywood stars, and a lot of them, they look extremely thin and anorexic looking, and almost, they look sick. A lot of these, Hollywood movie stars, a lot of them look sick, and it's because of, the type of stress that they put their bodies through. And so people have the misconception that they have to look like that in order to be attractive. And I agree with what you're saying. From the standpoint of a regular person that thinks that they need to do 3 hours of cardio in order to be healthy and be attractive. I mean, and your local gyms. I know in mine, you see it all the time. I see, especially women. They're on the treadmill and they go on the elliptical for an hour and a half. Then they go on the stair climber for like an hour. And you know, I've seen a lot of these women, come in looking attractive to now looking like they're sick.
right.
And it's because they have that misconception, and what they're doing, like you're saying, is they're just going backwards. Instead of getting healthier and being vibrant and being alive, you can see that they're being drained and they're not attractive. And it's that fine line because they're not educated. And it's a shame. You got to be very careful.
Yeah, no, for sure. The like you said, the consistent. You know what it is too. I think it's the perception, especially because of magazines and just where most people get the information today, which is through your bookshelves and magazines and TV and advertisements and all that kind of stuff. They look at what they want to be and they figure, because most people really don't know, they figure, well, you know what? If all I did was go running, or if all I did was hit that elliptical, then I could look like that celebrity, then I could look like that athlete. And unfortunately, they think, like you were saying, that just by hitting it hard and having the focus discipline, which is a great place to start, the fact that they're actually doing that. But then it's also a matter of what are you doing, because you can also you can have the right intentions and do the wrong thing, and then of course you're not going to get the result you were initially looking for. So
Right.
most people want that. As far as from what I've seen in my experiences, most people want a very pleasing aesthetic look, and they believe that the long aerobics will actually get them that. And what you don't realize is that, for example, it doesn't change your body composition. All it does is make you a smaller version of what you already are. So
Right.
for example, you know how different people have different kind of body shapes. You got some people, when they get heavy, they look like a pear. Some people look like an apple. It's just how their body is designed, where they get the fat stored up as they get heavier. So if you're somebody who is very pear shaped, and now you start to hit it hard on the treadmill or in the street or whatever you do that's just this consistent cardio hour after hour, you'll lose weight for sure, and you'll get smaller, but you'll go from maybe saying being 30 or 40 pounds overweight looking like a big pear to being maybe even around the weight you're supposed to be, but you'll look like a small pear. So you really don't change or wouldn't be changing the actual composition of how you look, which is the whole idea of what you want. And in actuality, you can, without, once again, not saying that all that stuff is bad for you. Everything has its place, like you said. But you can actually change the composition of your body to go from maybe being a pear to having that aesthetic look for men where they like to have that tapered look where the waist is small and then the back kind of comes out, broader chest at the top. Women like a more, curvaceous type of look. You can do that through different types of training and mixing in that cardio along with different types of training, maybe some weight training or just other resistance training that's going to get you that look. So to kind of go off your point, Pete, without going off into a rant, I think what it is they mistake the massive cardio for body recomposition. That's what they really want, but they actually go for the wrong side of it.
Right.
So, and just so that we don't beat up people who are doing the cardio, different methods, you can also kind of flavor it up a little bit. You don't always have to just do the same thing. The most common thing you'll see for most people who are really just, they don't know what to do is, hey, I want to lose some weight, let me go running. I mean, that's pretty much, everybody kind of has that same idea. Let me get some running shoes, let me go running. But we now know through all the modern technology and through people looking at the evidence over the last X amount of years of people getting into great shape, you got at least 4, 5, 6 easily different ways that you can do long-term aerobics. For example, like Pete trains in martial arts. He trains kids in martial arts. He also trains teenagers and such, and even some adults he used to train. And they do a lot of cardio and they do a lot of aerobics, but you won't find them necessarily running around for miles and miles, but they still get in a strong amount of that within their class.
Right.
And it's based on how you break down the class. So maybe you give an example of if you're running a class right now with a couple of kids or a couple of teenagers and you're getting them fit because, hey, as a martial artist, you got to be flexible, you got to be able to have high endurance, which means your aerobic capacity has to be pretty serious. So right. What are some ways that somebody says, you know what, I don't want to just run for miles and miles. If I did go to a martial art class, or maybe I just want to copy the ideas of what Pete talks about, what could they implement, or what are some ways that they could do that?
Well, for instance, when I used to do kung fu, just the repetition of the forms, from going into low stances, exploding into high stances, and just repeating over and over and over and over and over and over again. You'd be surprised that right there is an amazing, aerobic exercise on its own. If you look at boxing, shadow boxing, hitting the heavy bag. I mean, how much more cardio, do you want there? Let's say if you're teaching a self-defense class, the repetition of practicing, the escaping movement, the attacking, or maybe the kicking, just doing that over and over and over again. And obviously, the actual sparring, which for me I think is a very great form of cardio. Just practicing your technique, practicing not getting punched, practicing being able to strike your opponent. Doing all these things, it's just it's a great form of cardio, and you can do that 30, 40 minutes, and you'll be done. And matter of fact, in most cases, for instance, I'm a big fan of the Chinese martial arts, Shaolin Kung Fu in particular. I mean, you do 40 minutes of a of a kung fu workout, and I promise you that you probably drop like 1,000 calories. I promise you that.
Well, so let me ask you this: to somebody who is they've never done fighting, now when I say fighting, guys, I'm not saying that that Pete is going out there training guys and they're fighting all over the place. Professionally or anything, he still trains martial arts. A lot of it is self-defense, but he also likes to train traditional just to keep the kind of art going, and then of course for health purposes, because martial arts, when you do it the right way, you can get into amazing shape and still look relatively thin but be strong as an ox. But not everybody can afford some, like your classes that you teach. Not everybody can afford classes like that all the time everywhere. So for somebody who's seeing this and says, you know what, I would like to do that, has no idea how to throw a punch, has no idea how to throw a kick, should they do this even though they don't have the knowledge to do so and just maybe throw it out there just for the sake of it? Or what are some ways that somebody can do something that's very, very basic that they can do like right away without having the teaching of somebody like yourself who's already been the black belt for many years that they can actually do now.
I guess in a situation like that, maybe you might want to get yourself a Taibo kick, and they're relatively cheap now, and those very good exercises, and it follows the same concept. Billy Blank, you know, a champion fighter, you know, world-renowned martial artist, and you know, he'll go through like you. I used to do it because I found it fun at one point when they came out. You know, you would do the punches, and he would have you do the kicks and the knees and the elbows and all that good stuff. And it showed you really how to do it. Like it wasn't like he said, look, you got to turn your hand this way, you got to go take your bite. He didn't do that. But you were having a good time just following him and throwing the punches and throwing the kicks. So I mean, if you want to do something like that, or you can go on maybe onto YouTube and there's a whole bunch of stuff you can watch. Like for instance, you go to YouTube and you can type in MMA class. And you know, there's a lot of people that videotape their classes and they put it on YouTube. You can watch and you can follow along and try to mimic some of the motion that they do. You know, again, this is for if you're financially strapped and you just don't have, you know, the cash to go out there and get instructed. But if you know, if you did really want to learn how to do this, then the best way to do it is to have an instructor. But if you just want to do it for fun and to enjoy yourself, you can go on YouTube and you know, watch some of these things and just for fun, just throw a bunch of punches, you know, for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Throw some kicks, do some rolls and you know, you can incorporate all that and have a great time and lose some of the weight.
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree. You can play around with it just by looking online on YouTube and such. But just to kind of bring the point home, if you don't feel comfortable and you don't want, and here's another thing. This is kind of a side note. It's relative, but yes and no in a way. When you're learning anything brand new, there's we learn through the repetition of things, but we actually learn through our nervous system. Our central nervous system is everything it's consistently learning, picking up our new habits and movements, and they develop what they call these motor engrams, which is, you know, kind of like a fancy way of saying it's like greasing a groove. So if you picture like a lawn, right, and you take your lawnmower and you cut, because if it's 6 feet high of grass and you cut a groove, every time you pass that lawnmower, it's going to get a little bit lower and a little bit lower until eventually you have a pathway in that lawn. So you have all the other grass might be up, but that one pathway is shaven, and you can kind of just walk right through without a problem. You kind of have to picture that with your central nervous system. The more you do a pattern, it continuously carves it into your nervous system, into what you know, into your brain. That's why martial artists, boxers, etc., when things happen, they rise to the level of not the occasion, but they rise to the level of their training. And that's a misconception. People think that if something happens to you in the street, something happens, you're going to rise to the level of the occasion, like a movie. And that's all false. We all know, well, not all of us know that, but fighters like yourself, be trainers, they know that that has nothing to do with how courageous you are. It's going to go to how many times have you done the thing, so that when danger approaches you, you're already there. You're in the stance. You're in a particular movement because it's been dug into your brain so much. The reason I bring this up is because if you have intentions of learning some kind of martial art or boxing and you want to really learn it the right way, meaning that you want to be able to, hopefully one day that you don't have any kind of issue, but if God forbid something did happen to you, you can use it for self-defense, you want to be able to use it to defend yourself or a loved one, then you probably don't want to go on YouTube and just throw punches and stuff, because what you're going to end up doing is developing the wrong motor engrams. You're going to be basically getting the wrong movement. So when you go now to somebody like Pete, and he's got to sit there and he says, you have any kind of fighting background, and you tell him no, because you're thinking that you don't, but you've been doing it on YouTube. Now you go to him and he wants to see some form, and he starts to teach you the proper way, and you're not able to get it. The reason is because you've already developed basically a bad habit.
Right.
And to learn something right the first time, it only requires 500 movements of the perfect form. But to unlearn and redo something that you learned the wrong way, it takes something like 1,500 repetitions of that movement in the right form to get it right.
Oh yes.
So, you know, obviously, if you have any intentions, you don't want to hurt yourself before you get started, and then have to relearn and unlearn it. It's just too much of a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, big time. We see that all the time.
Yeah, we see that in the classes, and which kind of leads me. Actually, it does in a way. It kind of leads me to something else. We've been talking a little bit about fighting, but one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I was talking to somebody the other day, and they drink a lot of water, and they were saying, man, I'm drinking almost as much as a gallon of water a day, and yet I'm always thirsty. I'm always thirsty. It doesn't make any sense. I'm drinking water. Like, I should be fine, but I'm consistently thirsty. Why is that? And I think that's because a lot of people, once again, not being educated, and it's nothing wrong with that. It's because it's so hard to learn everything there is to know about health. It's such a big subject. It's such a broad subject. You could take a lifetime just learning about one area, never mind having to learn about all these different things that kind of affect all of us. Right? And one of the things is with water is that you can drink water and not be satiated, meaning that you can drink water and not necessarily be hydrated. You could still be thirsty. Your body could still be requiring more, what it thinks is more water, so you're drinking more because you haven't been satiated. The reason for that is because most of us drink dead water. We drink water that's been demineralized. And because we drink water that's been demineralized, all you're doing is just basically putting a liquid into you, but that it has no real substance in it, because it's not the water per se that gives us the satiation or the hydration. It's the mineral compounds that are in the water that when you drink are actually going into your cells and filling up your cells, making them nice and plump, giving the body the minerals and the nutrients it needs. That comes from the mineralized water. That's why if any of you guys have ever been fortunate enough to actually drink clear spring water from an actual spring, or if you drank what they call restructured water. Sorry, I had to look up to think of it. Restructured water, meaning you take water that has been demineralized, right? It doesn't have any crap in it. There's no chlorine. There's no tap. It's just dead water. And you restructure so that the minerals are back in there that the water was supposed to have, like it had in its natural state. And you drink a glass, say 6 to 8 ounce glass of that. You'll notice that 1 or 2 glasses, and you feel great. You have energy. You feel satiated. You feel hydrated. You're good to go. Versus you drink a bottle of any of the modern day water bottle companies from Deer Park to Palm Spring. It really doesn't matter. You might drink one of those, and you might need 2 or 3 of those before you feel any kind of hydration going on. And that's something I don't think a lot of people are aware of, Pete. And I know we were talking about just the other day some of the effects that tap water in itself has for people. You were talking to me about some stuff with tap water. Maybe you want to go over that just a little bit, kind of give people an idea, and we can go back and forth on just a little bit about what tap water is all about. For those of you who don't know, you probably want to try to stay, if you can help it, try to stay as far away from drinking tap water as you can.
Well, research has shown that a lot of tap water has a lot of contaminants in it because old pipes, the systems nowadays. I mean, we're talking about systems that go back to 100+ years, and a lot of these pipes are rusty, and they commingle with the sewage pipes. I mean, it's a whole study on its own. But the bottom line is a lot of these waters are full of all kinds of contaminants that when we ingest. I mean, even to this point, doctors really don't, or scientists don't really know what happens to our body when we're ingesting these chemicals.
Right.
And that's what you're getting from the tap water. And it's funny because I was doing some research, as a matter of fact, on this last night, and studies have shown that a lot of the bottled water that we're taking, a lot of that really isn't as clean as we think it is. So, I mean, I guess either which way you look at it, there's an issue there. But the bottom line is, tap water if you're drinking tap water, then you got to really stop. You got to have some kind of filtration system.
Right.
Because it's just, first of all, like Nick said, I mean, it's dead water. There's no nutrient coming from it. And then you add the fact that they could have some chemical compound in it. Now you're just putting poison into your body. And if you look at the world and society that we live in, a lot of people are sick. Sometimes they don't really understand why. And it's something as simple as just the water that they're drinking that's causing all kinds of things. It could be something simple. It could be like, a lot of the symptoms that they say, sometimes when people drinking, contaminated water, they don't realize it, but they're nauseous. They get headaches. They get fevers and stuff, and they're like, well, what's going on with me? I never get the flu. I get the flu once a year. I get the flu towards the end of the year, and they're like, well, what's going on? Because the water that they're drinking just isn't good. It's something that's basic and it's simple, but it's powerful. Is that?
Right. Well, they've shown, or studies have shown, that as little as 2 to 3 pharmaceutical compounds inside of inside of your water can make you dramatically sick. Just two or three different compounds, and tap water has shown to have at times as many as 50 compounds,
Right.
which
Oh,
is absurd. Which so that what that means is essentially what that means is we are people who are drinking tap water are an experiment, because if they know that two compounds or three compounds is detrimental to your health, they know that for a fact, and that's just two. So when you're talking about multiplying that by almost what, 30 times, 20, 25 times, that many more compounds in the water now, and then we're all drinking that or bathing in that. In a sense, they're like an experiment, because now it's almost like, okay, well, let's see what happens to these people after 15, 20 years. How's it going to affect them? Because we have no idea.
right.
And that's obviously something that you don't want to have your family exposed to. The challenge, though, is that a lot of the filtration, like you said, Pete, is or can be expensive. So a lot of it just depends on what your priority is. Hey, I mean, the times we are with the economy being as it is, and my personal belief is we all afford what we find to be important to us. Some people may not like that to hear that, but I feel like I just tell it like it is. If you don't want to hear it, then that's just that's fine. You can choose to hear and believe what you want. But a lot of times when I used to have my classes that I ran for quite some time, I would have people say, I can't afford the right foods. I can't afford organic type of foods. I can't afford this kind of water. I can't. And all that you would hear is, I can't, I can't, I can't. But these are the same people, when they would invite me over for a barbecue, had a 60-inch flat screen LED TV. These are the same people that had phenomenal several hundred to over $1,000 home theater systems, over $1,000 worth of Blu-ray DVDs in their library.
Hey,
So
that's
you're
it.
talking, yeah, yeah, it is. But I mean, hey, and there's nothing wrong with having any of that stuff if it's in the right context, if you can afford it while still doing what's right for your family. I mean, if you have to choose between the fact that you got a home theater screen, a home theater system, and then a brand new TV and some Blu-rays that may have run you altogether $3,000, or providing a filtration system for your family that bathes in this water and drinks it every day for the next 10 to 15 years, then I mean, what we call that no-brainer.
Right.
There's some certain things that take precedence, especially when you have kids.
Right.
At
Oh,
least that's how I see it. That's how I see it. Some people may think that the LED TV is more important, but my thing is, once again, getting back to the point, is that I feel that we can. It's all priority based, especially in America today. People complain about the economy, but what we consider poor today was rich 30, 40 years ago.
oh yeah.
So we're better off, as crazy as that might sound to some who don't believe that, but we're better off today than we've been in our past. So going back to priorities, getting that water, a filtration system can run you as much as, well, let me put it this way, it can run you as little as $50 by getting a Brita, where we all know about the Britas that you can buy at the local supermarket. Or you can go as high as a carbon filter filtration system, which go for, I think, 1,500, around there. Then they have the reverse osmosis filtration systems. I think, I could be wrong, but I think those are the most expensive ones. They go pretty high. They can go up to like 2 Gs. Um, and then, of course, depending on how big your house is, you might need two. So you have to, obviously, I'm not the world supreme expert on water filtration. I know a little bit about it, but if you're really contemplating doing something like that, obviously you want to go to the experts. One guy named Tomaz, what was his name? Thomas Tomaz? I think that was his name. It's like TT or something like that. But if you look up Thomas Tomaz, I think it is. He's the CEO of a company that's called Aquasana. And I'm not talking about this because I want to big up Aquasana and talk about how great the company is to sell any of their stuff, because we don't make any money for it, so it doesn't make any difference. But this guy is an expert on water filtration. Not only is he the CEO of the company, but the guy's phenomenal. I've seen interviews of his, highly knowledgeable about what's happening with the water today. And his company is based out in California, which right now is the most strict state in our country on water. They have the highest regulations on water. And if you're looking to do anything about water or know anything about water, that's the state you want to kind of mimic or look at what they're doing, because they're pretty much better than every other state. They got some of the best water out there in terms of their filtration, in terms of their in terms of the regulations for what's allowed and not allowed, because there's a lot of companies out there, especially network marketing companies, that sell you these ionic filtration systems. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen them, but you got a guy talking to you about, hey, if you buy this water filter, it raises the pH level in your water, you'll be better, you'll feel better, and all this kind of stuff. But in California, they make you prove without a shadow of a doubt that is that true. So a lot of these network marketing companies that sell these filtration systems, they don't do business in California because they can't prove it. So this is why it's important to know this stuff, because you want to keep an eye out. If you had somebody to your house last week trying to sell you something regarding this water filtration, you're hearing out our show and you're like, man, I want to learn more about this water. You're thinking about buying his stuff. You realize that that company can't get approved in California. That should be a red flag for you. So it's good to know about what's happening in different states. But if you look up, once again, that guy's stuff, he breaks down the details about all the water filtration. Without beating that like a dead horse, let's keep it simple. I'm a big fan of not complicating things. Water, just like any other topic in health, you can overcomplicate this stuff to the max. And we were talking about, Pete, you and I both, we don't like to sit there and spend hours and hours having these big words thrown at us and make something that we can explain to somebody in 5 minutes. So one of the things is Brita water filters, $20, right? I think they go for about $20, something like that.
$20-$30. They're relatively cheap, inexpensive.
$20-$30, and then I'm gonna, after I talk about this filter, Pete, I just want you to kind of talk about yours, not necessarily the company, because it really doesn't matter. There's a bunch of companies that do it. Just want you to give them some what you feel, how the water has been since you've actually changed your water filtration system in your house, utilizing the stuff that you have. So I'll let you go on that in a minute. But for everybody else, you got your basic Brita. Now what that does is, all it does is what they call it kind of Febrezes your water. It makes your water a better smelling water, right? Because when you drink tap, it's chlorine, it's fluoride, and we can spend another hour talking about fluoride, chlorine, and what it does to you. I mean, it's a big topic. We'll maybe cover it another time. We actually do talk about it at scratchhealth.com. We got some new programs that are going to be talking about water and that we have for those of you who are interested in really finding out more information about it. But for today's purposes, the Brita, which is kind of Febrezes your water, and what it does is just makes it taste a little bit better. It makes it smell better. You don't smell that strong chlorine, but it still has all the chlorine in it. It has all the fluoride in it, and it pretty much has all the other contaminants in it, with the exception of like one or two minor contaminants. But it really doesn't do much. Is pretty much the bottom line. It doesn't do too much. But at the very minimum, if you don't have the money for anything else, get that versus drinking straight tap. Straight tap, you want to try to avoid that like the plague. You never want to drink from your faucet straight, because there's no way to filter it. One thing that you'll learn when you follow our stuff on Scratch Health is that if you don't have a filter, your body becomes the filter. And that's the worst place to be, because it starts to suck your body of what the water needs to find what is called homeostasis. Basically, water always tries to find its balance. Remember Bruce Lee says water always tries to find its balance. It tries to find its way through. He was being really philosophical with it. But he was right. Water's always going to try to find its evenness. It's always going to try to find its pH balance. And if that water is dead water, as we talked about earlier, Pete, then it's going into your body as dead water. Guess what it's doing? Because water is alive. It's going through your body saying, okay, right. It's saying, what can we take from here? What can we strip the blood? Can we do this? How can we raise the pH of this water that's dead? And it's stripping you throughout your body. And then when you pee it out, your pee comes out yellow. Why? Because it stripped you of all the nutrients that you already had in you to make itself balanced as it comes out. So you never want to have that. Then you have a next level up, which is something that Pete did. So I'll let him go into that for the next 5 or 6 minutes, which is he changed not only his drinking water, but he also took it to another level and actually changed the water that he showers with, obviously for the family. So why don't you go over that just a little bit, Pete?
Well, we went with the Aquasana brand because we just, from what you was telling us and then the research that we did, it just makes sense for us. I mean, we put the well, the way it works is we have the filtration system right into the sink. So, when the water comes in, the water that we cook with, the water that we drink, so it all it filtrates through the filter that comes. It's a pretty big filter. It's like about maybe this big. And then it gets plugged into the sink, and then it cleans. When you open it up, it goes in, it cleans it, and it shoots it back out. I gotta tell you, it tastes a lot better. You can see the cleanness on it, and it's just an overall better program. You can go on to the Aquasana. They break down how, how it's supposed to work. They show you how their product works and everything, and it's got high ratings. And we also got a filter for the shower because it's like people. You got to remember that when you're taking a shower, your body acts like a sponge. So don't think that just because you're drinking water, you can just take a shower with crap water. It doesn't really matter because when you're in that shower and it's blazing hot in there, because I know a lot of us like to take hot showers, your body's just sucking all that dirty, contaminated water into you. And I wasn't happy with the situation, especially I had two small children. So I wanted to make sure that that we were clean all the way around. And it's relatively inexpensive. I can't even remember how much I paid for it. I think I paid $200 initially for both filters, and then every 6 months they automatically send me the filters in the mail. I think I pay an extra $60. It was the deal that I got. I think it's an extra $60 every 6 months, and they send me brand new filters. If you have any problem, like I had an issue with when we bought a new sink. I didn't have the adapter, and we called them up, and they were phenomenal. They sent it to me like literally like in a day. So I mean, it's just a great overall company, and the product is really good.
For those who are listening, another thing that benefit from that, just to kind of piggyback on what Pete was talking about, is that when you have that clean water that you're showering with, on top of the fact that you're drinking the cleaner water, when you're showering, you got that water hitting you, that tap water. What the chlorine is doing is doing a couple of things, drying out your hair. I mean, how many of us, we all know that when you shower, if you're in the shower too long, you come out, your hair, especially if you have hair like mine, longer hair, or more fro type hair like me, curly hair. You stay in the water too long, it's gonna you get that, like that dry, almost brittle feel.
You're gonna get this.
or you just get bald fast because it dries you out. It does, and it takes all the oil out of your hair, out of your skin, and all that stuff. Because chlorine is it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's wow, I'm drawing a total blank right now. But basically, it's a bleach. Wow, took me a while, but it's a bleach. It's a lighter form of bleach. That's where they throw it into the pools because it bleaches out and cleans out the water. So you're getting this kind of astringent bleach drying effect going on your actual body, which is not good at drying out your hair, drying out your face. Actually will aid you a little bit because it's giving you that, taking all the oil out of your body, the natural oils that we have on us. So by just doing something as simple as what he did, you get that filter. And it doesn't have to be Aquasana. There's a couple other companies that do it. You can spend, some of them spend more, some of them spend less. The only difference in between the companies is going to be some companies, they take away a little bit less contaminants. Other companies take more contaminants out of it, but they're more expensive. It all depends on what you can afford and what you're willing to pay for. So you can look on and compare. But the bottom line is, if you just get something, and you'll find that within, I think you said, what was it, Pete? You and your wife said within about a week, you'll notice that you didn't even need to use lotion anymore.
Yes. Skin is a lot smoother, and doing especially a lot of traditional martial arts, especially like hitting hard targets, hitting the boards, hitting concrete and shit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've always had an issue with my hands because they always they're really dry and choppy looking. So I would always have to lotion up 2-3 times a day because as a businessman I can't walk around with my hands looking all grimy and scary looking. And I noticed that, after we got the filter for in about a week and a half, I was looking at my skin and I was like, wow. I was like, it's not dry anymore. It was crazy.
Right.
So I had to attribute it to that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the benefits, just as an added bonus. And like I said, once again, I'm not trying to sell you on Aquasana. I'm actually selling you on the idea of having a filtration system of any kind. So once again, the company don't matter. As long as you have something, it'll give you smoother skin, better hair. And then, of course, for the ladies, if you want to keep doing your thing with the lotions and the potions and all the other stuff you put on your hair, your body, obviously you can do that. It'll just make it that much better. I just will warn you on one thing. Like anything else, you have to be careful what you're putting on your body because, like Pete said, your body is a sponge. We don't kind of look at our body that way a lot of times. We just kind of look at ourselves, we beat ourselves up, and we keep it moving. But your skin has thousands of pores, which does act like a sponge. You don't have to drink to necessarily be hydrated. So people who have severe dehydration, if you looked at them like in the old school cowboy movies, when they were really parched, before they made the person actually ingest any water, they would pour water on their face, they'd pour water on their arms, they rub it into their chest, and then they pour a little bit on their lips because they were trying to get their body saturated with a little bit of this water before they threw it into the system. Why? Because our body does work like a sponge. So when you're throwing these lotions on you and they got 10, 15, 20 different chemicals on there, especially after a hot bath where your pores are open, that's going to get sucked into your bloodstream that much faster, sucked into your skin and absorbed. So if you're not 100% sure that you're using quality quality products or quality organic type compounds that you're rubbing on you that is not really going to affect you in any in any bad way, you might want to just get some clarity on what you're putting on yourself before you do that. So that's just another idea. One of the best tips, and I know we're not really getting into tips, but one thing that I like to use, and this was actually brought up to me by a kind of like a naturopath person, somebody who's really into just everything natural, was coconut oil. Not only is it good to cook with because it's one of the better type of oils, very healthy for you, the type of fats that it is, but it has a myriad of uses, which is number one, it's great for your hair. So if you have curly hair like I do, or if you have long hair and you just want to make it shine, after you take a shower or a bath or whatever you do, you can put that into your hair. It kind of gives it that nice look with the shine going. And if you put it on your skin, you'll start to notice that within about a week or two, like with the water that Pete was talking about, you start to get a nice shine on your skin. And people joke about that or they laugh when I say stuff like that to them in person. But you ever notice when you look at a very well-bred horse, like on a horse race, if you ever watched a horse race or watched a horse gallop, people who raise these horses, they take exceptional care of them. Their coats, like their skin, they're very shiny. They got beautiful coats. You touch the horse, it's very smooth. Their skin shines. Their fur, whatever they got on them, it's very shiny. And I'm just here to tell you, that's not just for animals. Animals are not the only ones that can have a very pretty looking shiny coat. Us as human beings, we tend not to have that because of our diet, through diuretics with coffee and stuff that actually dehydrates ourselves, gives us a very dull look to us, and because of the water that we use. If you just reverse that, start doing things that rehydrate you properly, get the right kind of oils on you, you start to notice that your skin, much like a lot of these animals, will start to get that glow, right? Like Bruce Leroy, you get the glow. And when you get that, that people find that attractive, men and women. You'll notice. They'll actually notice that from across the room. I've had people, they've told me, and other people I've seen who do a lot of the same things, like, you have a glow about you, or you have a certain look, or you look very healthy, or whatever the case is. They don't know how to describe it because a lot of times they've never seen it, because a lot of people don't have that anymore. But when you see somebody with that kind of, it's like it emanates through them. It's like, wow, what is he or she doing that makes them stand out more than everybody else? So just some tips to get yourself back on track to obviously being more healthy. So I think we kind of covered some good stuff. I didn't realize it's already the hour. For the purpose of today's episode, guys, we're gonna keep it short because our time frame is 8 to 9. Like I said, we did have an expert that was lined up for today. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it. We had some technical difficulties, whatever the case was. Couldn't get her on. So fortunately, Protein Pete was able to, he was busy doing some other stuff. I had to pull him away, which I felt bad. I had to pull him away from what he was doing so that we can have a little bit of back and forth and talk a little bit with you guys and give you some kind of a show. We're going to cut a little short today, but next week we'll make sure that we're back on it again, and we'll have an expert ready to rock and roll, talking about specifically their level of expertise. And we'll always, of course, have Protein Pete on call, ready to give some good advice whenever he's available in case anybody can't make it. So just want to say our time is now up. Any last words, Pete, before we get out of here?
Just keep using that protein and get that water cleaned up.
All right, guys. Well, this has been another happy rendition of Healthy Hangout, and we'll see you guys next week.